In our politics lead, as White House board czar Tom Homan announced plans for eventual drawdown of immigration agents in Minnesota today, Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine posted, quote, "I can report that Secretary Noem has informed me that ICE has ended its enhanced activities in the state of Maine. There are currently no ongoing or planned large-scale ICE operations here." Here now is former Transportation Secretary for the Biden administration, Pete Buttigieg. He's also the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana. Really appreciate your time. Just to start kind of with what we've seen over the course of the last 36 hours, there's clearly a messaging shift, tonal shift from the border czar this morning in his press conference. Susan Collins talking about the DHS secretary acknowledging a shift as well. Do you believe there's an actual de-escalation here?
Well, there's certainly a lot of damage control happening in the White House. They are changing their posture, yet to be seen how much that changes conditions on the ground. I think what's important to note is not just that this is happening, but why this is happening. At a time when our country seems so polarized, actually a lot of people have come together, not just Democrats. This is not a left or right thing anymore. This is a right versus wrong. And I think that's why you're seeing conservative voices, Second Amendment voices, even some elected Republicans saying this cannot go on like this. This does not make us safe. Standing up to the president and requiring him to do the one thing that he swears he'll never do, which is back down.
What do you say to people who say, look, the president ran on this? I mean, literally at the Republican National Convention, they were holding signs, largest deportation force in history. Stephen Miller was there from the beginning. They said, look, this is what people voted for.
Well, the president ran on immigration. I don't think most people who voted for him, in fact, I know most people voted for him, weren't voting for the idea that an American citizen could be pushed to the ground, have federal agents take his gun away, and then shoot him up to 10 times. I don't think Americans were voting for immigration police to get more funding than the FBI itself. I don't think most Americans voted for scenes like what we saw of a woman opening her door at her home in Minnesota to find half a dozen federal agents wearing more tactical gear, more heavily armed than I was when I went outside the wire in Afghanistan, and arresting her husband only to have his arrest ruled unconstitutional and illegal and have him returned a few days later. This is not what most Americans, left, right, or center, want to see. And I think that's why you're seeing more Americans, left, right, and center, speak up and demand that things change.
I want to turn to the remarkable scene in Georgia. You talk about people seeing things and saying, wait, I don't know that was what I was really, I wanted lower prices. I wanted a different economy. I don't think many were really keyed on this remarkable scene in Georgia, where the FBI seized hundreds of boxes of 2020 election ballots and related material from the Fulton County Elections Office. Senator Jon Ossoff called yesterday's FBI search in Fulton County a, quote, sore losers crusade. Georgia Republican Chairman Josh McCoon called the action long overdue and, quote, Georgians have waited years for real answers about what happened in 2020. Getting every detail out, especially around ballot handling and processes in Fulton, is absolutely critical. What's going on here?
What's going on here is that the president is, again, weaponizing federal law enforcement for political ends. It's just like recently we saw the attorney general weirdly inserting a request for voter rolls in her demands with regard to Minnesota. And again, most Americans want nothing to do with this. The president lost the election in 2020. He went to court dozens of times trying to prove otherwise. There's a reason why he lost again and again in court, which is that in a court of law, unlike on Twitter, you have to actually present evidence for your claims, and there are punishments for lying, which is why more than 50 cases about this were rejected. Trying to relitigate this now is clearly raw politics, and I think an attempt to get us talking about anything but the president's economic failures. He ran on lowering costs. And yet today, in the White House, he specifically promised to increase housing costs, which is actually what's been happening. He specifically took action that has directly increased the cost of groceries and consumer goods with his tariffs. And he's increasing utility bills by shutting down energy projects. It is the opposite of what he promised. And of course, he would want us talking and thinking about anything else.
Actually, I had that sound ready because I want to ask you about housing and what the president said today related to the issue that you just referenced. Take a listen.
People that own their homes, we're going to keep them wealthy. We're going to keep those prices up. We're not going to destroy the value of their homes so that somebody that didn't work very hard can buy a home.
The political person in me says, well, you cut that in an ad pretty quick. But the policy person in me says, all right, what are the policy plans on housing, which is a very difficult, intractable issue? How do you respond to that, and where do you think Democrats are there?
Well, first of all, build more housing. But also, we need more responsible fiscal policy. See, when you do a massive tax cut for the wealthy, it runs up deficits that lead to interest rates being higher, which makes it harder to afford a home. So the president is talking out both sides of his mouth. I also think it was very revealing that his idea of somebody who wants to buy a home is somebody who doesn't work very hard. Most of the people I know are working very hard, and yet, by some measures, the average age for a first-time home buyer has gone from about 28 to 40. It cannot go on like this, and the president is doing nothing to help make it possible to afford housing in this country. If anything, he's making it worse, not just with the fiscal policy, but with this immigration policy that is going to make it harder to get anything built in this country.
Where do you land? We were talking during the break. Midterm season is in full gear. When I talk to Democrats, anybody who's running wants you usually in their district or in their state. You know, the idea of what the message should be, what the focus should be on. Karl Rove, I think, was saying, this will be the first time Democrats can't run against just Trump. They need to run on policy issues. What are those policy issues? But also, where does ICE fit into all of this? Because this was an issue, I think, in the last couple elections.
Well, specifically on ICE, I think Democrats need to stake out the common sense position that, of course, we need to have immigration laws, secure borders. We need to enforce those laws. But what this administration is doing is not making us safer. It is making everything worse. More broadly, I think Democrats need to make sure that we are making clear what we would actually do. And I do sometimes worry that the Democratic Party could lapse into appearing like the party of the status quo. What we are about is making sure that you are able to get through life better because you got a government that's working for you. And that happens at every stage of your day, from when you get up in the morning and you can get clean, safe drinking water because you have good basic city services, to being able to drive on a road to work or school that has good infrastructure funding, keeping it in good condition, to being able to have quality education, childcare you can afford, knowing that when you get to work, you are protected in your job, you have good benefits and good pay, coming home to a house you can actually afford, and if anything goes wrong, knowing you can afford the health care to cover you too. That's what we are about as a party. That is our message. And while there is plenty going wrong, obviously, with the Trump administration, I don't think it's enough only to talk about him, because if we're only talking about him, we're not talking about you.
This midterm year, for many, many politicians who have run for president, has been a really formative moment for them to make their decision. Even those that haven't, sometimes will be out campaigning, and that's when they kind of know. I'm interested. You said you don't know if you plan to run again in 2028, but what would be the case for not running? What would you have to see to make you say, I don't think this is it?
Look, a decision to run for any office, every time I've decided to run for something, every time I've decided not to run for something, has been based on looking at what the office calls for in that moment and looking at what I bring to the table. And sometimes there was a match, and sometimes there wasn't. It's also, something you think about as a family. And, a year ago, as I was weighing whether to run for statewide office in Michigan, thought a lot in these terms, including, what that would mean for our family. But what I'm sure of is how I should spend the next year, because no matter what, I know that lifting up candidates I believe in, causes I believe in, going to places around the country, including places that don't always hear enough, I think, from people on my side of the aisle, that's the best thing I can do to make a difference right now.
Pete Buttigieg, really appreciate your time.
Thanks. So I know we're talking politics, but I don't want to leave the set without acknowledging the pain of the families in that plane crash that happened 1 year ago. We're all thinking of them.
Yeah, we were talking, it's surreal. It was 1 year ago, but remarkable to see our team interview the parents for certain. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.